I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Ghosty. And Jim Root.
Jim Root. I love the way you say Jim Root. Why do you say it that way?
Oh no.
It's very cute when you say it.
Thank you.
It makes me love you a little bit more. Why are you doing that? No! That's on the YouTube thing. Put it on YouTube. What's wrong with you?
I don't know what happened. I don't even know how it started.
God almighty.
Can't you do anything right?
So, do you want to edit that or we're going to keep going?
No, we're going to keep going.
Okay.
People need to know how you really are with me. You want some gushers, babe?
Those got to be very old.
Doesn't matter if they're packaged. What do you think these things? These are probably good for 1,000 years.
I was going to say, they'll inherit the earth with the cockroaches. This is Devilment, full dark, no stars from the record, the Mephisto Waltzes.
So we have a $75 partner tier on Patreon. So if you have a song that you're like, I can't ask you anymore, I need to get it reacted to, that's the way to get it fast-tracked to the top of the list. So My Insanity picked this one. So we'll see.
For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. That's also where we do our firesides. There, listener.
Basically like political live streams. Sometimes we talk about other things, but...
All the next few firesides are going to be apolitical by popular demand. But they're gonna be open.
You don't look too happy about that, Vinny.
Well, I think the political stuff is important. But
I mean, I think just chilling is important. Alright, ready? Put your headphones on, babe.
Alright.
You're not gonna hear it
Full
that
dark, no stars, the Mephisto Waltzes. Let's go.
Go!
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Sorry.
chasing demons in my mind. I pitched into the dark, Who could have known they'd find me there? And in the depths of my despair, imprison me inside and take control. Take my soul. Hey,
Whoa.
Wow. That was good.
That was Danny Filth.
I like the art too.
Danny boy.
Nobody beats Pony's art. I'm like a real big fan
I
of
know
Pony's art.
you're a fan of Pony's art.
Yeah.
Yeah, when me and Zoe make our debut metal song, we're gonna have Pony do the art.
Oh yeah, that'd be crazy.
So Hark the Feral Angels Bring is a kind of play on the Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Mm-hmm.
Feral angels, though feral would be like fiery angels.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of ironic because it says the black shadow over everything. What did you think the song was about?
I just thought it was like well, he talked about guilt and he talked about like that kind of like the what ifs. The what ifs like if the what ifs come over and take over him.
What if the what ifs take control? That's such a brilliant line.
Disgust. Yeah, I know. I like that part, and and what if I'm lost forever to this disgust? I thought it was just, to me, it was like the parts of yourself that you hate, the things that you do that you really didn't like, and then he's saying like, if you think to yourself, well, what if this happens, or what if this, or I don't know, like it was just those thoughts that kind of come and take over you, like overtaking you and taking control is what it was to me. But
it seems like it seems to be a song about depression and anxiety, and he's personifying them as dark angels, which would be demons, which is very, very interesting considering some Christian traditions talk about that when somebody's under demonic oppression, they suffer from depression and anxiety. And there's such an interplay between the spirit and the body that, we've had this discussion about, medication and things like that, where it's like, because human beings are body, soul, spirit units, they're comprised of those things. Sometimes you have a body issue, like a physical issue, that a physical medication would care for, would neutralize. But sometimes there's also soul spirit issues, which the medication will not take care of. And so a lot of times people get very confused, from a naturalistic perspective. The doctor's like, oh, it's not working, well, here's more. And then, people, cycle in these, and then on the other side, people are so religious that they think any depression and anxiety is completely spiritual, and so they neglect, using medicine, which the scripture explicitly tells us to use medicine. So, it's one of those things where it's...
Well, you're talking about where Timothy was instructed by Paul to...
Not to drink only water, but to add mixed wine within it because of his stomach.
Right.
Which wine there was had a medicinal purpose. And so if you extrapolate the principle from that, this is Paul who had done miraculous stuff. And Paul didn't say, hey, Timothy, you got a bad tummy.
Right.
I'll just, pray over it and you'll be okay. He says, hey, man, drink some, don't drink only water, drink wine, mix wine in there with it. Probably what had happened was Timothy had probably taken a sort of a Nazarite vow where they're not allowed to drink alcohol. And Paul was like, look, man, you got a bad belly. So solve the problem. So my point is that, and I think we know this intuitively. When the 3-year-old falls down and he scrapes his knee, the mom definitely deals with the peroxide and the Band-Aid, but she also gives him a hug and a kiss. Well, what does a hug and a kiss have to do with his knee? Well, it's because when he got hurt, his body was hurt, but his soul was also hurt. And so the mom knows, yes, I have to take care of the physical aspect, but I also have to take care of the emotional aspect.
Right.
And of course, as Christians, we have a third degree, which is the spiritual aspect, which is, how, a good Christian mom will put on the peroxide, the Band-Aid, give him a hug and a kiss, and say a quick prayer for him. That takes care of all three, right? So, I think it's important to understand that. So when he talks about, to me, it just looks like anxiety and depression. Like people who suffer from anxiety disorders, the what-ifs are crippling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what if the what-ifs take control, which is another what-if? Which is that's the irony.
That's why I like that line.
That's the irony of the line. The irony of the line is that it's obvious the what-ifs have taken control because he's asking a what-if question about what-ifs. The genius of Daniel Filth, ladies and gentlemen.
When he said, and I'm lost forever to this disgust, I just, was thinking about when, this thing could happen or that thing could happen, and if those things do happen and then this happens and all those different things that can take place, and also like the stuff that is within you that kind of like makes those things happen, then you're like, the disgust to me was like the disgust that you feel about yourself.
What do you mean?
Like there's certain decisions that I made in my life, and then it brought certain events to happen, and then when those happened, then it was like, okay, what if this happens and what if that happens, and then I would be like worrying about all these events that could possibly take place, and then I'm lost in all of the things that could possibly happen and the things that have happened, and then on top of that I'm just disgusted with the way that everything turned out, and you know what I mean, like it just kind of becomes this giant fearful thing that can, those pictures were really good, I think, to describe what it feels like when anxiety kind of wants to take over you. And
that's why I always say, never, ever, 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 ever make a decision out of fear. I say that a lot, like I'm never gonna make a decision when fear is my ultimate or my dominant feeling or emotion. It doesn't mean you're always going to choose wrong out of fear, but it increases the likelihood that you're going to make a bad decision that you'll regret later. Because fear is a fleeting emotion, but it's a powerful one.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most powerful emotions in the world. I mean, it's juxtaposed with love. Right? There's no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. And we know how powerful love is. And so, like, my goal in life is to make all my decisions from a place of love and none from a place of fear. Which is a pretty tall order to do, but if you have that as a mindset, it's something that helps me with anxiety, because I've got diagnosed anxiety disorder. So this one of the things that, as a principle, that I operate on, which gives me a lot of peace, actually. But that's something that I committed to doing years ago. It's actually, when I ran into that scripture and was really dwelling on that scripture, it changed my entire life. It's really weird, like one image of God and that one, love and fear, and the relationship between love and fear, and fear having to do with torment and and realizing, okay, God doesn't want you to live that way. So I'm like, okay, if God doesn't want me to live that way, then he definitely doesn't want me to make decisions that way, because one fearful decision actually leads to another one.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So, like, that's the thing. That's the crazy thing about anxiety, is that it's a kind of a beast that can never be satiated. Because the more you feed it, the more hungry it is.
And you start panicking with your decisions. And
yeah, like fear and anxiety.
Then you start making faster decisions because you're trying to escape from the other decisions that you made that were bad, and then you make more bad decisions, which makes you freak out more.
Yeah. On the devil's trail, the road is blind. I can't speak for you. I don't know your crimes. Your bitter heart has us entwined. I feel its edge cut through my mind. It could be you, it could be me, that holds the key to my own reason. So she's in a relationship with someone who's just as bitter as, they're both bitter, and they both have their skeletons in their closet. Closet. I can't speak for you. I don't know your crimes.
Yep.
Which, that's very interesting. Your bitter heart has us entwined. I remember when we were at when I was at the hospital, the psych ward, whatever people want to call it. And this is in 2001. And these people would start, inevitably people would end up in relationships. Now, I had a girlfriend in New York, and I was like, so I was off the market, and but you'd watch, and it was a co-ed floor, and like you would see these relationships start, and obviously the doctors were like, recommended very highly against it,
right?
But there's really not much you can do in that situation, but. And it was one of those things where it was like, there was one particular couple I'm thinking about, and like, it was one of those situations where if we weren't in the psych ward, this guy would have no chance with her whatsoever. She was a very, very pretty girl, and he was kind of big and goofy, but they found a sort of, relationship with each other because of their shared pathologies. They had similar, everybody on that unit were like, people who were legitimately trying to kill themselves. Like, my buddy Ed was walking around Augusta with a shotgun brandished, if I did it, I wouldn't be here. But bless God, Ed is a white male, so they they took him down and
got the man some help.
Well, he was kind of sad because he had just been released, and he was very, very fearful that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So he got himself back, basically recommitted. And that's where he and I met. I was the youngest one on the unit, and he was kind of looking after me and stuff. And good dude. It was like the first real gay dude that I was really friends with, and we were really, really close. And he looked after me, made sure I was good. But so when I look at Your Bitter Heart Has Us Intertwined, like, we would watch those two. Because we had a little crew, and like he'd come to my room, we'd be playing cards and shit, and we'd be talking to me, and he'd be like, you won't believe, and they'd get found in the closet, those two, and it was just,
they were organizing the closet. That's nice.
Yeah, but they the last I got out before they did, which is kind of interesting because I stayed for a half a year there. I got out before they did, and by the time it was time, they had already broken up and fought and broken up and this, and it was just so unhealthy and terrible. And I just remember thinking, But it was the first time I questioned me and my girlfriend at the time's relationship, because I remember looking on the outside being like, I said, this is crazy. Like, look at this. Like, how could you be in a relationship with somebody, and I'm like, we're all in the funny farm. Like, we're all obviously not well. How could you find, oh, that's the one I want to be in a relationship with? And then Ed looks at me and he goes, well, if they were outside the hospital, would that make their relationship valid? And I was like, and then he was like, I mean, your girl is with you. Something must be wrong with her.
Oh my gosh.
It was the first time I was like,
wait a minute.
because you know the person. There was nobody in that hospital that could hold a candle to her as far as pathology goes.
Right.
I mean, God bless her, but,
right.
You know, like, so.
I wish I could have seen your eyes because sometimes your eyes are very expressive, especially when somebody like brings something to your attention that you haven't thought about. Because you gotta understand, Vin is always thinking. Like, it never stops. He always is wanting to like learn something. Like, I mean, I've even had to like adjust to some of the ways that you're always wanting information. Like at night we go to bed and like the TV is going, not like just a movie. He's watching like, you know, where they're talking about political stuff, or there's like, you know, somebody's talking about a certain type of religion. It's like always information coming in.
Yeah.
And you just love it. It's just like so like normalized to you. So like when somebody brings up something that Vin has never heard of before, it's like so few and far between. Those moments are very interesting because you like kind of perk up like, oh. So
yeah, most of the time I'm very, very happy to hear something I've never heard before.
Yeah.
It makes me very happy because I know that that's the tip of a very giant iceberg.
Yeah.
You know, like our friend introduced us to Hinduism.
Yeah.
And it was just the tip of a very, very, you know, fascinating, you know.
Yeah. You've been on that.
Yeah. So when he said that, I was like, no, it's different with us. And Ed was kind of smart enough to know when to drop the subject with me, so he's like, yeah, good deal. He was like, sure. Absolutely. I wish you could have met Ed. He was so funny. He was so funny. He had a stroke. So like,
how old was he?
He was like 45, 50. He'd had a stroke and the right side of his body was all, you know, screwed up or whatever. And he had this limp, and he was extremely intelligent, very insecure, but really good dude. And when I got out of the hospital, I got set up in this like halfway house apart. I brought you there. And he was like next door across the way, so we got to hang out even after that. And it was weird because the hospital discouraged all relationships. In you know, they would tell you in your little thing, you know, keep taking your meds, and they were basically like, stay away from anybody that you met here. Mm-hmm. But what was weird was they said, we're setting you up here, and Ed is going to be released a month after you, and he lives in the same apartment complex, so you'll know somebody.
Oh.
Yeah. They made an exception with me and Ed because, you know, he was, you know, we had a good effect on each other, you know, because I would you know, I would calm him down when he was having his, you know, little episodes, and he would make sure that I didn't go after anybody because I was not a pacifist then. So we were actually very, very good for each other, honestly.
Oh, that's cool.
I would have had a much, much more difficult time there if it wasn't for him. And once I got out, I would have had a difficult time for him. Of course, then my girlfriend came up from New York, and that was the end of me and Ed. So that was the end of it. She called and left a terrible message.
No. To Ed?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because yeah. So, anyway, shout out to the big homie. But, yeah, so it just looks like dealing with depression and anxiety and how that functions in a relationship, and not being able to get over guilt and fear, you know, which I think is... we talk about this a lot in the Bible boogies. Like you know, guilt. The concepts of guilt, fear, and love are such massive concepts in the human psyche, and I think a lot of people misinterpret, especially the Christian religion. Oh, Christianity focuses on guilt. Da 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 da. It's like all of us deal with guilt. So whatever system you adhere to, it better have a complex, sophisticated structure for how to handle guilt. Because if you don't, then you're gonna end up singing shit like this, you know. So I think it's important to whatever, you know. Obviously, we all adhere to a Christian system, but whatever system you have, you've got to have something that systematically deals with guilt. Because we all do things that we feel guilty about unless you're a sociopath.
Well, I was going to say, and if you have no guilt, then you have cause to be concerned.
Right. Then you should have some anxiety. Maybe I'm a sociopath. Yeah, and so sometimes like that unhealthiness, I think a lot of times people mistake love, mutual love, for mutual pathology. Those aren't the same thing. Because a lot of times, like when you have a pathology that is kicking the crap out of you, you feel like nobody else can understand you, and then you run into somebody with your pathologies, and you go, oh, and then we love each other. No, you don't share love, you just share pathology. And I'm not saying it never happens.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying though.
I'm just saying it's extremely easy to conflate the two.
Wow. Oh yeah, I bet.
You know,
because somebody understands you.
Right. And so the song ends with a black shadow over everything, which I think is just depression. You know, it that's the other bad part about getting a relationship with somebody, because it's like you, it's very hard to get better. And then there's one person that is finally making progress and the other person isn't making the progress, so they do things to bring them back down to that state, because it's a very, very hard thing to do. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's hard. It's very, very hard to do. So, there you are. What do you give the song?
Ooh, this one's a 9.
Yeah, the 9.2. Brought back a lot of memories, actually.
Yeah.
I felt like I was... I look back at that time as a good time for me, you know, being in the hospital. You know, it's like... It was a turning point for me in my life, and you know, honestly... The meds and stuff and yada yada yada, but the major thing for me about that was I just needed a half a year break, because my family, my older brother, you know, got involved in this group that took him away from our family, and now looking back I realized he needed a break. You know, and so he joined that organization and basically left us behind for a year or two. And at the time, I couldn't understand, because I'm like, we're living in hell here. But when I went to the hospital, that was my break. And it was like, being with those people was easier on my mind than living at home. You know? So, I didn't really like the structure too much, you know? But it was just like, okay. I just needed a break. So they're not bad memories for me, you know? But... there you are. What did you give the song?
I gave it a 9.
9.2. Good song. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.